In the summer of 1945, a successful test in the New Mexico desert proved that a single bomb could vaporize a city. This weapon was the direct result of a geographic and mathematical escalation that began 4 years earlier. In the early months of 1941, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive assault on the Soviet Union. He deployed over 4 million men across 3 simultaneous thrusts to seize the vast natural resources of the East. But that rapid blitzkrieg stalled against the realities of Russian geography. By October, heavy rains turned the ground into deep mud, bogging down vehicles before the temperature plunged and froze tank engines just 19 miles from Moscow. Hitler's logistical failure pinned his forces into an unwinnable war of attrition that immediately drained Germany's manpower and oil reserves. The conflict descended into urban combat zones like the Battle of Stalingrad. Fighting devolved into savage block-by-block ruin warfare, where Soviet defenders used sewers for communication and shattered factories for cover, measuring progress in corpses rather than meters. Rather than pull his overextended troops back to defensible lines, Hitler demanded his armies hold their ground. He micromanaged complex panzer divisions for massive armored counterattacks, like the assault at Kursk, delaying operations for weeks to wait for new Tiger and Panther tanks. Those heavy, over-engineered German machines ran directly into the Soviet T-34. At 37 tons, the T-34 was lighter, faster, and better equipped for cross-country travel. More importantly, Siberian factories were mass-producing them at a rate of 2,000 a month. Backed by this industrial output and 16 million mobilized troops, the Red Army launched relentless counteroffensives. They overwhelmed German lines through sheer volume, pushing the exhausted Axis forces out of the Russian homeland. The Eastern Front crippled the German military machine. This loss of manpower and equipment stripped their Western defenses thin, giving the United States and Britain an opening to strike. To exploit that distraction in the East, the Western Allies massed over 2 million troops in England. Their goal was Operation Overlord, a massive amphibious assault across the English Channel designed to trap Germany in a two-front war. On June 6, 1944, an armada of more than 5,000 vessels appeared off the coast of Normandy. Allied troops waded ashore into heavily mined beaches and machine gun fire to breach the concrete fortifications of the Atlantic Wall. Supplying an invasion of this size required immediate engineering solutions. The Allies built their own ports by towing giant, hollow concrete boxes across the channel and sinking them off the coast. These mulberry harbors allowed them to rapidly offload tanks and fuel. Pushing inland meant fighting through a dense patchwork of Norman hedgerows. When American and British forces finally broke through the lines, Hitler refused to authorize a retreat, leading to the destruction of his own trapped armies in the Falaise Pocket. With the German defense in Normandy shattered, Allied armored columns raced across the French countryside. By late August, French resistance fighters rose up, and American tanks rolled into Paris, driving the remnants of the Axis army into a retreat toward the German border. A fully mobilized American supply chain in the West and millions of Red Army soldiers in the East now trapped Germany in an inescapable geographic vice. Half a world away, the Japanese Empire was collapsing, cut off from vital fuel and raw materials by American submarines. Knowing they could not win a conventional victory, Japan's military leaders intended to make every American advance so costly in human life that the United States would abandon the war. This strategy turned the island-hopping campaign into a slow, agonizing grind. On Iwo Jima, U.S. Marines spent weeks clearing out massive cave networks against a Japanese garrison ordered to fight to the death. By the time U.S. forces reached Okinawa, the Japanese were deploying specialized desperation weapons. They launched hundreds of kamikaze strikes and introduced the Oka, a rocket-powered suicide missile carrying a 2,600-pound warhead. To bypass ground combat, the U.S. military pivoted to strategic bombing. They deployed the B-29 Superfortress, which finally brought the Japanese home islands within striking distance of heavy payloads. American commanders ordered these bombers to drop thousands of tons of incendiary devices, creating firestorms that leveled 16 square miles of Tokyo in a single night. Yet, despite massive civilian casualties, the Japanese military leadership refused to yield. Projected American casualties for a mainland invasion far exceeded the total troop reserves currently available in the Pacific, with Japan mobilizing over 1 million soldiers and thousands of suicide aircraft. The cost of a physical invasion was too high. Staring at the mathematical certainty of a bloodbath on the Japanese mainland, President Harry Truman authorized the use of the atomic bomb. In August 1945, a single B-29 dropped a uranium bomb over Hiroshima, instantly vaporizing the city center. 3 days later, a second device was dropped on the port of Nagasaki. Humanity had entered the nuclear age. On the same day Nagasaki was hit, 1.5 million Soviet troops poured into Japanese-occupied Manchuria. Stalin launched this armored blitzkrieg to seize Eastern Territory before a peace settlement could be reached. Facing nuclear devastation and a massive Soviet invasion, Japan's war cabinet remained deadlocked. Emperor Hirohito personally intervened, instructing his ministers to accept the Allied terms of unconditional surrender. On September 2, 1945, the Japanese delegation boarded the battleship USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. They signed the final documents, bringing the deadliest conflict in human history to a close. The force required to crush the Axis powers left a fractured globe. Half of Europe fell under Soviet control, while the United States held a nuclear monopoly, drawing the immediate battle lines for the Cold War.